Check. Hey. Yeah, I saw some people switching places. Hello everyone. Knob Twiddlers 61 already. 61, can't believe it. Anyway, but yeah, welcome to Knob Twiddlers Hangout. Drumcell is here. He's back. The man. It's just like California versus Rotterdam today, I think, right?
Yeah. You're being teamed up on.
The Rotterdam Californian gang hangout. Hey man, how are you, Mo? All good?
Pretty good. Happy to be back, like always.
Yeah, and you invited two of your friends. We have Joshua there, also joining us from California. Where are you exactly?
Pasadena.
Nice one.
Which is the sleepy old person part of Los Angeles.
That's beautiful, though.
When you're middle-aged like me, you go to these quiet places where there's trees and you can walk around and ride your bike.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Well, nice to have you, man. Really good to see you. And Tom Hall is joining us as well in an even more quiet place. Where are you?
I'm up in Lake Arrowhead in the San Bernardino Mountains. So, yeah, about an hour and a half. If I go out on the ridge nearby, I can see LA, so it's not that far away. But it feels like it.
In a remote place with kick-ass internet.
Yeah, I got lucky. Somehow it's faster than downtown LA, so go figure.
Awesome. Yeah, I just mentioned before, I checked your Instagram and you literally tick all the boxes with the amazing views, a studio, with a nice organized kit and a cat and a modular, which is, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. I got one. I picked up one of those starter packs at Guitar Center, like the ambient starter pack.
Yeah, exactly.
Get yourself a Mountain View, a cat, a modular.
I hope you got a good bundle deal on it.
Yeah, I did. Sell out.
Awesome. So the thing that I'm really interested in about your workflow, Tom, and also from Joshua, is you guys are really into using Max MSP and doing programming and making music, and I really admire people who can actually do that because I'm kind of too impatient to get really deep into that kind of stuff, and I dabbled in it, so I know how it works, but I can never set myself to actually go really deep and do all the programming. And because the thing is, I just want something, I can put my hands on that makes noise and then just sculpt it along the way. And so my first question would be, how do you kind of compartmentalize those two jobs, being like creative and in the flow, and at the same time being so focused with a totally different part of your brain while you're building those tools? Do you allow yourself to play around with whatever you've built, or are you first finishing your tool? And how does it work for you, Tom?
So let me just explain maybe one simple thing about me that will help put this into context. I was the kid who had a perfectly functional little dirt bike when I was 10 or 11, but apparently to me it wasn't perfectly functional enough, so I decided to pull the carburetor apart and pull this other thing apart and then put it all back together, but it had 2 bolts left over at the end. I'm not it's almost a detriment in a creative practice. I'm not satisfied with a Nord Lead 2, which sounds amazing and whatever, but I have a problem that someone else designed that interface for me. So I then have to work within their parameters and confines. The creative process, programming with Max for me is I have to distinguish the two sides apart, like the programming, the experimentation, the patching side. And then if I'm going to, record something, make an album, I really have to tell myself, like, no editing, no diving back into the programming side of things, because if I do, I just never finish a recording. Like, because you'll be there jamming on something. So the only rule is if it's a bug, maybe it's something where I suspect I can make the timing tighter or something. In that case, I might edit, but otherwise I do have days where it's like open patches, don't take them out of presentation mode, and just use the UI that I've created to make stuff. Yeah.
Mm. And do you feel it does require a different mindset or a different part of your brain while you're working on those two different jobs?
Most definitely. I have to have recording days for my own sanity too, because you could, Max is infinite. Max MSP is infinite. You could just spend the rest of your life designing synthesizers but never actually recording any output from them. And
it's very similar to the whole sort of Eurorack phenomenon these days. People always working on their system and never really recording anything solid.
Well, Max is pretty old. He started in '84 at Urcam with Miller Puckett, and it goes through to now. And there's legends in the Max MSP world, who I've never heard a recording from, but they're legendary in the, content they've produced within Max. It's and people have built careers on that too. I mean, it's another element of creativity. It's just there's just not a music. There's not an album output, or
Yeah, I totally understand. I that's why I admire people who can, because like you said, you can also just buy this machine that already is designed by somebody else that does the thing for you, and you can just it's like instantly playable, so it's cool. Yeah. What about you, Josh? Do you separate the two jobs, and do you feel you're tinkering on patches and making music ratio is healthy?
Yeah. It's funny, I had a very similar experience to you, where on and off since the late 90s I did tinker with it and kind of not really get anywhere. And then I guess I got serious with it about 5 years ago, but I got, at the risk of being really jive and name dropping, please, everybody forgive me for this, I got really good advice from Sean Booth from Autechre, who said that you do have to separate your brain for these two tasks, as they are very different. And what he explained to me is the best thing is, like, if you do the programming stuff in the morning, maybe early afternoon, you take a little break, and then you spend the evening and the later hours playing with the patch that you've been working on in whatever state it's in. And in sort of using it and making music with it, you'll see what's wrong with it or what you need to fix or what could be better. Like the things Tom was talking about in terms of timing. Timing is everything in Max MSP. And it's the number one thing that can make everything completely fall apart and go off the rails, is if there's a timing error somewhere in your patch. So that I've stuck to that advice pretty well, and I find that if I'm nervous about, specifically with the last Telephone record that came out 2 years ago, there was I was really nervous about having to make it, so I used the Max programming as a way of kind of procrastinating the actual act of composition.
Yeah.
So I could say, oh, well, I'm making progress, I'm spending all this time doing this programming. I basically
play it to me. What do you have?
Yeah, I basically programmed for 4 years, 3 or 4 years before I really sat down to write. I finished 2 or 3 songs ahead of time, pretty early on. And then with just sort of early prototypes of the system that I was working on, that Tom played a key role in helping me figure it out. But then all at the end, once I kind of had the system in a situation where I could use it to make music, boom, 8 weeks, I was record finished.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing though, if you start out building an instrument, right, or an environment or a tool or whatever, you obviously have this this goal in mind, you know, like an aesthetic or a way to deal with whatever, you know, like manipulation of sounds or rhythms or whatever. And then you said you spent 4 years programming. How do you retain the energy and the motivation to follow through with that idea until you're, you know, when your tool is finished? Because when I have an idea and when I have an aesthetic in mind, you know, maybe it stays there for maybe a few weeks, and then I kind of it fades and I don't want to pursue that idea anymore. You know, if I don't do it instantly when it's fresh, you know, when it's hot and when I'm motivated, I just want to get it out of myself and then follow to do something else. So how do you retain that energy? How do you retain that idea?
I think that's why I'm not really prolific as Telefon Tel Aviv, because usually making a TTA record is sort of hinges on doing something extremely difficult that's time consuming and a pain in the ass. Like the first record, it was just making thousands of sounds and laying them out in a Pro Tools window, just looping 2 bars of music for weeks. You know, it just took forever. It's an incredible amount of work, and it's as a result, I feel like I spent all of the energy of my adult life making Fahrenheit fair enough, and so now I'm just lazy. I just don't care, and I don't want to do anything. I just want to like work on my platinum trophy in Bloodborne. So for me, it was like a thing that I'd always heard in my head that since the late 90s, since we first started, that I always wanted to be able to do without having to program it in the window in Pro Tools. And it's this kind of collapsing and expanding time stuff. And there's a little bit of it on the first record. We do some stuff with the piano that's speeding up and slowing down in one of the songs. But I wanted a whole system that was just sort of free of the grit. And so I knew what it was and how it would work and how I would use it to make music. And it just took me, I had to do it, and it just took me 4 years basically to get it to the point where I could use it. And I think for me, it's like the one good thing that I can say about myself as someone who makes music is that when I have that idea, I'm relentless about it until it's executed.
Right.
I'll fucking kill myself to get it done.
I think Josh touches on something interesting here with that length of time between the development of the max patch. Like if you saw this patch that Josh developed, you're like, oh, that's Josh. Like, you know, and there's an element of satisfaction derived from the creation of that tool, you know, like it's not, you know, like I love the Nord lead too, but I don't get any satisfaction from its creation. I had zero to do with that process, you know. So there's a lot of satisfaction in the development of something from the ground up that's derived, and I think that's how you sustain yourself between lengthy record periods, perhaps. I mean, I remember when Josh was really nailing that patch that was a big part of that record. I'd meet him, he was jazzed. He was pretty excited. And that was cool. Maybe more jazzed than when his record came out.
I mean, maybe you answered this question already, but I was kind of curious as like how much of the process of designing the patch actually creates the sound. Or, I mean, in your case, you already knew exactly what you wanted to execute when you were designing it, but Tom, maybe you can ask, like, how much does the patch you design, does it actually create the sound that you're listening to, or do you have something specific in mind that you're trying to design and then it just delivers from there?
They're interweaved for me.
Yeah. Like Josh, I'd been chasing the sound for a long time, decades. Yeah. Like, and it's a very finite kind of granular time-based, synthesis. And I've only started to creep up on catching that bastard in the last couple of years after many years of Max programming, and it's satisfying. But yeah, I think that the interesting thing, like any creative project, when you're designing the very brush or even the pigments, to use an analogy, is that it sometimes shifts, right? I mean, there's one thing I love about Max, and it's the same about, URAC and other modular synthesis, is this possibility for discovery, happy accidents kind of thing. And so sometimes, yeah, there's been an idea that I've had, and then it shifts because of something I connect a patch cord the wrong way or something, and I'm like, holy shit, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, because it seems to cater to an environment of happy accidents constantly.
Oh, totally. Max is a little less forgiving as far as happy accidents go than URAC. I mean, I could jump on this thing here and literally close my eyes, and I'm probably going to be able to get a sound out of it. Closing your eyes with a Max patch and trying to join objects together is not going to work so well for you. Yeah. No, it really lends itself to exploration. I mean, and there's a huge community behind it, and especially with Max for Live. It's like all that stuff can go back and forth between Max and Ableton, and it's
a great community, and veterans love to help out noobs. It's not like, oh, you noobs. It's not like, the From Software forums or something.
That is
on the Steam. It's like, it's really great. And like aged, grizzled veterans like Tom love to help out noobs like me when we're trying to figure shit out. It's great.
I think the reason why is everyone never forgets their like trying to get into math, right? And they've still got indents on their forehead from hitting the brick wall,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you never forget that for as long as you live. So you're always happy to help out, newcomers for sure. It's crazy how flaming or anything of noobs just does not happen. It's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean this over this pandemic. I mean, I've had Max around forever. I think I got into it when the Jazz Mutant Lemur came out at first. That was the first time I tried to dabble into it. But over this pandemic and having more free time on my hands than usual, Tom actually turned me on to a couple online Max MSP classes, which I'll be straight up honest with you, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my fucking head around it. But, I'm working my way up and trying to learn as much as I can.
Did you do the Cadenza course?
No, I didn't do the Cadenza. What was
Music Hackspace one?
Yeah, the Music Hackspace one.
Yeah.
Right. It was over a Zoom class, and it was a great little workshop to work with people, and they were super helpful. And we built patches together. I just haven't entered into the mindset of being able to create a patch that would cater to exactly something I wanted to do yet.
Yeah. That takes a minute. I mean, you're almost someone who I'm like, well, you probably need to get some one-on-one lessons so you can tell the person, hey, this is what I have in mind. Because, I mean, some of those courses, they're a catch-all, It's great if you're trying to get into the ground floor and just get the basics down. But when, you're a veteran of the music industry and you have that thing in your mind.
Yeah, totally.
And, but getting the basics down, I mean, Josh mentioned something that was interesting to me when he was diving into the Cadenza course 5 or 6 years ago, was that the big thing he got out of that was how to get yourself unstuck when no one's around, right? Because that's often the thing that, is the end for a lot of people who aspire to get into Max. They get stuck, they try, and then they give up. It's a human instinct. I mean, it's not it's not everyone does it with all sorts of stuff, but like, it's like, how can I get myself unstuck when I don't have a buddy to call or a forum to jump on in that moment and get an instant answer? Because you kind of want to keep rolling,
Yeah, I should clarify this for everybody that I feel really lucky that I had Tom to keep me from getting stuck. if I got stuck, what do I do? What's like one of the main UI functions of my entire system hinges on a little UI trick that Tom showed me that was like, oh, okay, I know what to do now. I know how to build this. After it was just a UI problem that I was having. It wasn't a methodology problem or a technical problem in terms of timing. It was a UI problem. And Tom solved it.
I didn't see him for a year after that. I couldn't even get him out for a taco.
Yeah.
Where's Josh?
So the other thing I'm interested in is I have a joy in the diving really deep in a very, very simple instrument. I always use very simple setups. I've quite a lot of gear, but whenever I do something, I choose my weapons and I just totally turn them inside out and explore them to the max. I just try to discover everything about the range of things, and eventually with the goal to become fluid on the instrument, because you're putting together an assembly of stuff, and then you want to get to know how to play it, as an instrument, to play any instrument, whether it's acoustic or electronic. You have to spend time with it. You have to learn its character, its ins and outs. How do you deal with this aspect of making music when your instrument itself is fluid, like when it's never in a like a final state? How do you become fluid on something that is fluid?
You don't.
You don't.
It's like it's archery on horseback. You're constantly trying to hit a moving target. That's what's the fun about it. That's the fun part for me.
Right.
I like being in situations where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm kind of just feeling around in the dark, and I feel a little bit bewildered by my tool set, and that it's a little bit above my sort of knowledge or skill level. I love that. That's my sweet spot. Tom might be different. But.
There's this interesting element where, for example, you get the hardware synth that has all the knobs laid out. You have to learn what all of those do and how they interact with one another. But you've been part of that development process in the case of Max. So there's already this intuitiveness there, perhaps before you've even built the UI for it, right? So you understand how the oscillators are syncing, and you understand how, the ADSR is working, and because you've made it. Mm-hmm. So there's already a little bit of fluidity there before you make the UI. And sometimes I find the patching and design process, the programming, engineering plays into how the UI ends up. But Josh is right. Like, because you could I've certainly done this. I'm like, oh, this UI is great, but I can't fit the other UI on the same laptop screen. So let me just squash everything to the left, and then so that I can see everything when I'm playing live. And then, your UI is completely changed. But yeah, part of building that muscle memory, perhaps, is what you're talking about, is like, switching to a presentation mode, to a UI that you've made, and just locking it down and not unlocking it, and until you've recorded something. I mean, a big part is, external controllers, connecting stuff in MIDI controllers and learn, setting parameters on a piece of hardware. I mean, there's still this nice tactility there, because otherwise you're just clicking a mouse, right? So, which we have to do for a bunch of other shit in our lives, which is not as exciting. So I'm when it comes time to recording, get out the MIDI controllers, get out the iPad, make a UI, and especially because it's funny, I've even discovered stuff once I've gotten to that stage, because I go from triggering one parameter at a time with the mouse to being able to trigger 7, 5, 10. You start discovering even new stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm just baffled by the discipline you guys need to have, to get yourself to spend that time to build a tool. But as you said, it's part of the fun, so I can understand. But it still sounds like a very daunting thing to me.
It is. I mean, I'm still terrified by it. Let's be honest.
Right.
What about for the live environment though? I mean, how different, Josh, for instance, is your Max Patch developed for studio production compared to the one that, like, I believe you used for the Second Woman project, right?
Second Woman is honestly done mostly with just tricks. Basically, what we do, like the live situation is totally different because live everything is running in Ableton Live, basically, and it's bits and bobs that we can, a device that's just kind of open and playing MIDI stuff that then we could manipulate. There's not as much of that kind of stuff going on live as there is in the studio. Only because the way this stuff works in the studio is so chaotic that I can't just use the system and like make a song and then that's done. It's like I spit out a ton of stuff, spit out clouds of MIDI data into Ableton, and then I go in and pick the bits that I like and slide it over. It's still, there's a lot of editing involved. It's not an entirely self-contained system yet. It could be, maybe someday. I haven't really had time to work on it recently.
But are there any Max Patches, Tom, that maybe you've messed with that have been designed specifically for live environments that maybe are more generative or lend itself better to kind of improvising on a live environment?
I mean, all of my patches are built around being able to be generative in that, I've got time to do other stuff when I'm playing live. I tend to do my own live visuals and audio at the same time with 2 laptops, so I'm keeping busy. But I tend to have elements that are very playable and improvisational in a sense. But with recall. So the best thing about Max is like it's just like infinite recall of different states, and that's pretty appealing. And it's probably why I'll never get super into Eurorack or something. I've had a few moments. I love it. There's a big old one there, but yeah, I've had some moments where I get pretty pissed off with it, and just like I've got this amazing patch, and then it sounds good, and I didn't record it, and turned it off, and came back the next day. I'm pretty sure no one touched any knobs, and I fucked if I could get back to where I was. Like,
you know what else, Tom?
Well, that's an easy fix. It's an easy fix, man. Just record everything you do.
I know.
You can always bin it afterwards.
I should not have gone to bed. I should have.
I'll never use Eurorack because you can't take two entirely different patches or 2 entirely different states of your system and interpolate between them.
Yeah.
So it's fucking useless to me. I mean, look, it's great for people make great shit with Eurorack. To me, it's totally useless. I can't do anything with it. If I can't interpolate between 2 states, there's no point.
So, Mo, we're talking about live. Like, Max is one of those things where you literally could just do almost max level iTunes, right? So it's a completely generative patch, and you just freaking hit spacebar at the start, and off your Max Patch goes, and it spews out like IDM forever and a day. Yeah. But I mean, as a live performer, you have to, I like to, things are not gonna, for me and my patches that I design, things are not gonna progress if I don't input myself, and there's always that possibility of failure too. So that keeps things interesting, Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly what I'm shooting for. My ultimate goal is to just create an iTunes level Max Patch.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah.
So you probably just want playlist tilde straight into like an output, and you'll be right.
Yeah. And create a bang button just to play the next track.
Oh, dude. We'll sync it to the actual. We'll sync it to the actual world clock, so that your set starts at 8 p.m. and finishes at 8:30 on the dot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see this question. I saw it in the chat. For the iPad, Max Cycling 74 has an application called Mira, where basically the UI that you've created in your Max MSP patch can just be beamed to your iPad. That's putting it simply, but it's pretty straightforward. And then all the an element of the or selection of the UI elements are exposed to the iPad, and then you can multi-touch control them. But I'll be honest, I'm pretty interested in the new Touch OSC app that just came out, which looks pretty amazing, especially because it has Lewis scripting and stuff, so you could. There's a lot of possibilities. It seems like it's the Touch OSC might be the new Lemur in a sense. The Lemur app hasn't been updated for a long time.
Is this a new version of Touch OSC that just came out?
They just dropped it maybe 4 weeks ago or something.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at it now.
It looks pretty incredible. And the great thing about that is working wirelessly with OSC is that it can, you can be controlling multiple things at once, not just a Max patch. Maybe it's a piece of hardware that responds to OSC messages or something.
Oh, yeah, they certainly did update this quite a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible, actually. And it's like $10 or something. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a key thing about really fully taking control is being able to have something to interface with a patch that you're designing with Max and give it some sort of tactile control. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's really key. I mean, I love the computer as a music making tool, and it's probably still the most versatile, most powerful tool. I mean, you can get a $500 laptop from Costco and you've got more power than Aphex made his early tracks on, or fucking they used to go to the moon. It's kind of incredible, but you still have to have the ideas. You still have to have the motivation to go down that road. But you need an interface. I mean, some of the most boring live music shows I've seen, was a guy clicking the mouse, but alternatively, probably had something to do with the sound, because I do remember seeing Thomas Kona play in Brisbane, Australia, with a wine bar table, a laptop, and a big old glass of wine, and he just clicked the button. But holy shit, that sound blew my mind. Like surround 4-channel. So yeah, I mean, I think for you, it needs to be the right interface for you as a performer. And I like options, and I also don't like staring into the laptop screen in a dark room and then looking up and being like, is fucking anyone even here? I can't see shit.
That's why I make my UI totally dark.
Yeah,
it's black. There's very little light coming off the screen. Like if I wouldn't be able to use it during the day. It only works in a completely black club. Then I can see it.
Yeah.
That's pretty techno, man.
All my stuff goes out. Every control is on a tactile control point, like be it a multi-touch UI on the iPad or a physical MIDI controller. Because I don't know, I have something in my head where it's like, if I have to click the fucking mouse button in the middle of a show, I've failed.
I feel that too. I hate using the mouse thing in the middle of yeah. It's a weird feeling. I mean, the Mono 128 and the Arc 4, I've sort of built the UI around those instruments, and which I think, in my opinion, for me, they're the greatest instruments ever built. The Mono. So I don't ever have to touch the computer really at all. I can completely navigate everything, and I have mode switching so that it could be doing sliders one time, or it could flip and be a sequencer another time. That's been really great to get my hands off the computer.
You mentioned something earlier, Josh, about doing stuff which is not on the grid.
Yeah.
Like, and I obviously it's also apparent in your music that you use stuff that sort of modulates in weird timings and stuff. How do you go about that? Is that something you've also built into your patch, into your instrument?
That's what the whole system does. It's just a way of sort of unlocking tempo within Ableton Live. And it originally started out as a Mac standalone patch that had several little sequencers that could sequence a sample or a drum synth or something. And then I split it into all these different devices in Max MSP, into Max for Live. So it's a main system that changes the tempo of Ableton. There's another one that will repeat notes at whatever interval you determine, and that can be constantly shifting. And of course, you can save states and interpolate between states, and those interpolations will cover all of the devices in the whole session, which was maybe the hardest thing to figure out, is how to save states in multiple devices across patches. But I have a very shitty hacked way to do that. So
do you mean that it's not on the grid but still deliberate, the timing?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It can be also set up to where there's a pattern that's sort of fluid or curved, or if you want to call it that can also loop every 2 bars to a specific tempo. So you can have it against something steady, and it'll loop around correctly. There's a good example of that on the last record in Arms Aloft, where there's this pattern that's constantly shifting, but it loops to 2 bars.
Right. Okay. So it's really a sequencer inside a sequencer kind of thing.
Basically, yeah. It's just an alternate way of dividing time. It's not based on equal subdivisions.
Yeah. I've done loads of things recently with no clocks. Just have stuff run on its own clock, or on whatever creates timing or creates intervals or whatever, and not having to deal with a grid, and just having things float and sort of lock together in different ways, in unexpected ways. It's just gives you so much more. It takes your mind away from the grid, and also it opens up a lot of sort of new. I wouldn't say accidents, but it opens up a lot of things that in the music that is just locking together in some way, because of course you end up tuning it, to have it doing things that do interesting stuff, But I've really enjoyed that approach recently. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really liberating feeling.
Yeah, that's the word. Liberating. Yeah. Yeah, then of course you can choose to chop it up and put it against the grid afterwards. But I mostly like it for what it is. Just let it be what it is, and not even attempt to fit it into like a structure later on. Just let it be what it is.
There was a question in the comments that was directed to Tom and Josh. They asked, where do you find your ideas or concepts for algorithms? A feel of random is often too easy, but so Euclidean. How to come up with a good algorithm?
I don't use algorithms. Yeah. I just kind of fuck around and see what sounds good.
Yeah.
Do I?
Yeah. I mean,
really.
Don't you have Fibonacci on your arm?
Well, yeah. But that's like this. It's just a sequence of numbers. That's not.
That's an algorithm. Fibonacci is a great way to work out how rabbits fucking multiply, right?
It's true. It's true. But I'm not really mathematically brained. Everything's sort of visual for me. I guess the closest thing to an algorithm that I use right now is I'm currently working on Markov chains to determine pattern selection, which is like, it's just an A state and a B state and a C state right now. And, there's levels of stickiness between A and B and C. And the more the pattern stays on state A, it gets less and less sticky and is more likely to jump. I mean, it's really pretty simple. I'm not really a complicated guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the same time, you're building these intricate, patches. But it's funny you say that, because in the pre-chat we were just discussing each other's music for a bit, and like we were basically saying, okay, whenever a musician gets the question, how did you do this, this and this track, and it sounds so complicated, and you must have had all these amazing ideas and all these things going on to produce it. And it's mostly the answer for any musician is like, I was just fucking around, having fun, just to see what happened, and I settled for this.
It's funny because he says Markovs are just this little thing, but it's like that's one of the core elements of the basis of machine learning. So it's like these little algorithms turn into bigger algorithms that do phenomenal shit. Like random is a funny one, because it's just like random is random, and it will sound random. Weighting stuff is really where it gets fun. Like random within a certain amount of weight against certain other elements is a real interesting one. And I think with random you have to be pretty careful, because ultimately we're human, and we want to gravitate towards some element, or we want to grab onto some element within a track or within a live set that someone's doing. If you can't catch that, you might not appeal to the person. Which
that's interesting, because that's the thing that often happens when you're working with machines that are spitting out data, or control voltage or whatever. It is still in the end a matter of sort of curating what the machine is doing, right? Because you have it like do things, and no matter how smart your system is or how intricate your patch is, it's still the musician or the person who's handling the thing is deciding whether it's pleasing to the ear or not. So
I algorithmically I tend to gravitate towards like Fibonacci, Markov, things that represent environmental elements around us, and a big part of that reason is through like exploration. I found that it's kind of pretty amazing when you put in like algorithms that represent photosynthesis, or algorithms that represent the way aluminium can crushes, or how a piece of paper how you crumble a piece of paper, and how the lines with that first crumble are more likely to crease in that point again over creating new ones. And it's funny when you start to plug in these algorithms into something and then generate music from it, surprisingly how pleasing some of them are to the human ear. Like how, or maybe not pleasing, but how you can relate to it sonically, because these things represent us, they represent our surroundings. It's like, and I like this idea of also perhaps challenging people, not necessarily just going out there to please people, make everyone happy. The environment, I'm sure there's an algorithm to represent the crumbling of our environment at the moment,
Do you ever feel you keep something in the track because in a piece of music because you felt the process surprised you and you were really proud of how it came out, and it even though it sounds a bit weird, or doesn't sound so pleasant. Like you don't want to part with you don't want to kill it because it took you so much effort to get there or something like that.
I don't know about that. I'm not afraid of scrapping shit. Right. I'm like, oh man, I spent 2 hours on that and it still sounds like dog shit. Like,
I scrapped 90% of what I made.
Yeah, but
almost. Yeah. I the reason why I'm not prolific is it's not that I'm not prolific. It's just that y'all motherfuckers aren't hearing any of it because it's all bad. So I have the one. Please allow me to pat myself on the back by saying that the one thing that I can definitely do as a creator or as a musician is I am very, very good at censoring myself.
Right.
I'm good at editing, good at saying, now you have to discriminate against your own work ruthlessly, dispassionately. You have to be able to look at it and go, this is trash. It's going in the circular file. No one is going to hear this.
But how do you know when you're not being too hard on yourself?
You don't.
Well, and the other thing is, Josh, I don't know. I mean, if you listen to something you've created 2 years ago, you might look at it from a completely different perspective, and you might actually give it a different value. So, if you bin it instantly, do you still keep it around for later evaluation, or you actually get rid of it and never look at it again?
It's funny you say that because I had this experience yesterday. I do this other project with Turk Dietrich from Milan called Second Woman, and we basically in 2019 basically made a full length, and both of us sort of felt like nah, it's not really cutting it, so it's just been sitting there. Turk opened a restaurant, I went to go do Telefon Tel Aviv, then the pandemic happened, and so we haven't had time to deal with it. But I started flipping through it again yesterday and listened to it, and I went, oh my god, this is really good. Like maybe we were just too zoomed in and couldn't see the bigger picture. So I don't always. When I say I put it in the circular file, there's like a repository, a separate hard drive that's not part of the work drive, where it's just full of stuff. It's full of stuff that's categorized by project, and it all has dumb names, but names that mean something to me, so that I'll remember. Oh, it was that piece. And there's a ton of stuff in there. There's a ton of Telefon Tel Aviv stuff in there. Second Woman, Sons of Magdalene, all of it. It's all in there. And every once in a while, I'll go back and cannibalize one of those ideas if I need to make something.
Yeah. So maybe it's possible in like 20 or 25 years, we'll have some Telefon Tel Aviv archive.
Mega books.
Mega box. Yeah, there's a ton of it. There's a ton of it, and no one's heard any of it, and not even my friends. It takes me even like a really, really long time, or I have to feel really strongly about a piece of music to even play it for a buddy. Like it's basically got to be finished and ready for a record for me to be able to even play it for a friend. I very rarely will play an idea that isn't finished, completely finished. It's got to be at least 90-95% done. But I'm not. Don't do that. Don't do it the way I do it. It's bad. It's bad.
Don't be Josh.
Yeah, don't. Fuck, please.
I mean,
don't do this.
Hard drive space is pretty cheap these days. I mean,
No wonder he plays Dark Souls, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hard drive space is amazing. Let me show you this. If I can get this in the this little thing is it's my entire sample library is on this. 500 megasecond throughput over USB 3.
Wow.
What's the capacity?
2 terabyte.
Gee, man.
Josh,
we're living in the future.
Entire sound library on a monolith.
It's great. It's
2001.
It's literally the size. It's the size of a piece of gum. Essentially, it's this tiny little thing.
Yeah,
that's what the monkeys were reaching out for when they saw that shit.
Yeah, man. If you just showed that to me 20 years ago, if you just showed it to me that it was this big, it was an SSD, it was connected via USB, had the throughput that it has, and would cost me $160 to put it together, I would have shit a brick. It's the future. I'm living in the future that I hoped, at least in terms of data storage.
Yeah.
Not the dystopian part, but the data storage part's
Not
okay.
the part where, the mountains behind my house are literally on fucking fire right now.
Yeah.
The roads are cracking open. And
The fire brigade is trying to roll by Josh's place. He's like, I've got a 2 terabyte drive.
it's cool.
We've made it.
We made it.
It's cool, man. Like, I can, oh shit, Max Verstappen's probably going to win the fucking championship this year. Some stuff's cool, Anyway.
Yeah. I have hard drives too, like Josh. Tons of shit from going way back. I did just pull up a bunch of shit that I used in a record that I released last week, actually. So, and it's funny because it was a bunch of shit that I thought. I remember seeing it on the hard drive a few years ago. I was like, why am I fucking even keeping this? Like, and, it was just looking for a certain sound source that had certain tonal characteristics. And it's like, oh, I've got a whole folder here of this stuff. Let's reprocess with a 21st century max patch and see how it sounds, That's one of the interesting things is like, as your capabilities as a musician, even not just, a patcher or a programmer expand, how it is something interesting conceptually too about drawing something from the past that you perhaps didn't really associate with, but thought it was important enough to take up a few megabytes.
Yeah.
Dragging it back into a new world.
Mm-hmm. How often do you guys, or let me put it this way, do you feel the need to add to your max patches or to redesign something from scratch if you're working on a new album and you want a new approach or a new take on that album instead of having similar elements to what have been in the past album?
It's a long, slow, iterative study. The patch is never really done. It's just constantly changing and getting little bits added and little bits perfected or tightened up. But like for me at least, I think before we go into another Second Woman record, there's I have early studies of a sort of systems design that I want to use to build out a system to make the next one. That is so it is starting from scratch. It's like a new idea that I want to explore for Second Woman. And then, I'll have to build that out over a long period of time, and Turk will have to look at it and add some stuff to it and take some stuff away. And I feel like it'll probably never be really finished somehow.
So another 4 years of procrastinating, pretending that you're designing a new patch and you're just trying to avoid making music or something like that.
Well, there's that. Yeah, sure. I'm not ashamed to admit it, dude. Making music is hard for me.
Yeah, no shit. Me too.
It's fucking hard. If it's really, really easy for you, you're probably making kind of whack shit. It's okay. If you're, it's hard for me.
Well, I mean, there's also a lot of people saying if it comes out very easily, effortlessly, it's usually good, and if it takes a long time,
I totally agree.
Yeah, and if it takes a long time and it's you have to kind of fight it into something, you have to kind of turn it around and change it a lot, and just work hard on it. It might not be the best idea to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, for all of my whinging about music is hard and blah blah blah, and the best stuff I've ever done was stuff that happened like that.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean,
constantly arm wrestling with my music when I'm trying to write anything.
Yeah.
The frustrating.
This.
The frustrating thing, though, is you can never predict or never set the circumstances up in such a way that these things happen effortlessly. It's always they just have to come along. These moments just have to.
You get lucky.
Exactly. The stars have to align or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So what are without giving your secrets away? What are these? What are some of the new ideas? Some of the new approaches you're thinking about then for your new patches?
In a very general sense,
Yeah, sure.
Again, dealing with time and how time sort of, it when it's moving around, when it's a moving target for the listener, to me that's interesting. I like the way that sounds. So now what I'm trying to figure out is ways to have, how to make sounds using thousands of notes at a time. Instead of a chord of 3 or 4 notes, now I'm trying to break down the entire MIDI spectrum, the entire 127 pitches. I'm trying to use those as a spectrum to make sounds.
Oh, okay.
So it's really it's a bitch to figure. I've got the prototype of it working, and it works, but it sounds like shit.
I think there's this. It's not the same, but it reminds me of something I saw a while ago. This application that kind of analyzes sound and sort of works like FFT, but in MIDI. So basically, it analyzes the sound, and for each sound in every sort of frequency, how do you say that? Like band, it triggers a MIDI note, so you can actually play a song through it and have the MIDIs basically spit out the notes that it sort of resembles the actual audio instead of the notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds really interesting. It's like it sort of varies. The results vary on whatever you feed into it, of course. But anyway, that was just something I thought of.
The test case was done with Despacito, which was pretty interesting. Broken down, it just played with piano samples, and it sounds just like a really lo-fi. It's cool. It's a weird sort of technologically ontological way of listening to.
I think we're talking about the same thing, yes. And it sounds like a vocoder, but it doesn't. It's a bit weird. But yeah, it's replicated using piano notes. Yes, exactly. But anyway, so you're talking about these all these notes. Is that a similar thing, like stacking things in a way to create other sounds? Is it a sort of granular way or something? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, is he frozen?
We lost him. Yeah.
I think we lost him. Oh, there you are.
There he is.
Can you hear us, Josh?
He's got that Pasadena bandwidth.
Yeah. He was telling us about it earlier. Old Town is right.
Oh, I think there's a clone. Here we go.
Hey.
Copper wire internet.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's right.
Even in live stream, he sounds IDM.
Yeah.
It's like the Autechre remix over here.
Yeah.
I think I think we can hear you again.
Is it cool? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you back.
Okay.
Yeah, the audio and video isn't in sync at the moment, but maybe it'll recover. I don't know. Let's try.
Somebody in the comments said there must be a Zoom glitch max patch.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, I was just asking. I was just asking you. Those new ideas you're talking about. Is it comparable to granular in some way? Like, is it to granular synthesis?
No, because I'm not really thinking about it in terms of resynthesizing something that exists already. I'm using it as a tone generator. But the problem is to play this many notes using MIDI is proving problematic for my computer. I need a tone, and also I need a tone generator that can actually play that many notes at the same time. Which there aren't.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun with.
Exist.
No, you're gonna have a lot of fun with compensating delays and stuff.
Yeah. So in order to make this work, I'm currently trying to build out the tone generator for it, which I've got a working prototype that doesn't sound the way I want it to sound yet. We'll see. Can y'all hear me? Am I like Max? Am I like Aphex Twin glitching out?
It's very suitable, I gotta tell you, man. It works. What about the visual element of Max? I mean, have you guys explored integrating like what is it, jitter into your live performances?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you speak a little bit about the process of how you make the two elements work together seamlessly?
Talk to that guy.
Yeah,
mine's too simple.
Like, so jitter has been around almost 20 years now. I think it was 2004 that it came out. So, and I think originally it was a separate package that you would purchase, but it's been integrated as Umbrella Max for a long time now. But there's something nice about it, and Touch Designer can do it as well. But Touch Designer doesn't have such as an extensive audio side of things. The beauty of jitter, if you use it with your Max patches, it's just so easy to integrate some visual elements that tie into the audio work. Obviously you can make the pulsing light to the kick drum pretty easily, but you can make stuff that represents elementary algorithmic elements that you've designed into your synthesis that are visualized in different ways. And there's something nice about this synchronicity or asynchronicity that you can generate between the two, because they're all one and the same. They're in the same application. You're not trying to run two different things and sync them with external hardware or something. It's what it's the only thing I do my visuals in. So I've dabbled in some other visual programs, but just makes sense to be there since it's what I know.
Is the language of designing a jitter similar to what would be in Touch Designer, or is it, being that they're both kind of node based, or is it
and in terms of using textures and GL, OpenGL, and a lot of that terminology is actually across all of the different video programs that exist out there, and especially when you start creating your own shaders, which is where you'll write out a piece of code that represents texture generation and the likes. That code can be then used in other things. Like actually, Andrew Benson, a colleague, Pixel Power of mine, just released or pointed out that a shader that he wrote back in 2009, that he's seen it cropping up in all of these other video applications. Because Touch Designer has nodes, but then it also has a node where you can write in text-based coding in a shader, and Max has that as well. And a lot of those things are universal across different applications. So it's interesting, but there's just something about that. I see people who do tie together Max or the MSP, the music side of Max, to Touch Designer. But it really, it's a personal choice again.
So when you play live and you're doing both, are you performing both live? Are you making choices for the audio part and the visual part simultaneously, or do you give the audio priority and is the visuals, are they following along? Because they are obviously linked, but
right.
What is the occupying your mind the most when you play live? What is the? It's
pretty hard to do both of them. You can't.
Yeah.
You've only got one mind. So you're also, if you think about it, on stage, unless you've made the iTunes Max patch, there's a feedback loop going on, right? So you're projecting out the sound and you're listening to it come back in if you're actually playing Max Live like an instrument, and adjusting stuff and progressing the set. And so visually, because that's usually behind you too, that's sometimes hard to see. But that's where I run a second laptop and I sync the two for a few reasons. I want the jitter visuals to have a high frame rate, and it usually something has to give if you're trying to run them both on the same machine. So that's something I'll do. And then the visual side of things will progress, but it's taking audio cues from what I'm creating. So it's doing spectral analysis. It's evolving based on what I'm playing. So there's a little, bit of an AI element there in a sense. But then I can go, the visual side does have its own dedicated controller, so I can able to change things. I'm able to manipulate things. There might be a section where I'm playing that's a little less, requires a little less interaction from me in terms of like constant input, where I can then have some fun with the visuals. So that's, and it's, I don't know if, I'm not really versed in other video software, to be honest. Live software. So I'd be speculating and seeing whether that's possible or not in another context for other people who use other applications. But there's something beautiful about the way that they work because they're in the same application.
Yeah.
Did you ever?
Sorry, I was saying you mentioned something about your friend's shader being used in other applications.
Yeah.
Are there like any kind of, I don't know, intellectual property ownership over patches or things like that in the Max world?
Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing. If you're really concerned about your IP, then you just don't share anything. There was a couple of back in the early 2000s, the Autechre boys did drop a couple of patches that were not completely finished or whatever, and it created a bit of a shit show, to be honest. And I think it's largely the reason why they're not on the Cycling 74 forums anymore, because Sean used to be on there. Although he may be on there under an alias these days, but I think if you're really concerned about IP, you just don't put it out there. If you're not so precious about it, then you put it out there. It's an interesting one because Max is not open source. It is a commercial piece of software, but it is a very generous community. So, if you are really interested in an artist and their particular patch output, if you had the time, you could probably surf through various websites and the forums and piecemeal together what you think their, studio patch or live patch might be, just from questions they've asked over the years and little bits of patching that they've shared. But yeah, the sharing element of it is pretty amazing. I mean, you've got maxforlive.com where people put up free Max for Live devices. There's like 14,000 Max for Live devices there. I think in the Cycling 74 forums, there's something like 40,000 patches. You could, there is no shortage of it. And I still do it. I still will occasionally have an idea and be like, well, I wonder if someone else has been down this rabbit hole already, right? So, I'll do a search and find several threads, and it's inspiring, actually. That's
I think it's actually quite a logical or a natural thought, because you're spending so much time programming your instrument and building that environment. That is as much a valid piece of work to be that deserves to be out there for people to enjoy and watch, I guess. I mean, unless you're not finished with it and you need to continue, you need to keep it private to continue your work or something. But it could as much be considered as an end result or as a piece of work, as much as the audio you've generated with it or the music you've made with it.
Yeah, it's what's really interesting is seeing. So I did a live stream back in April last year about using this element within MSP called MC. I made this little Max for Live device, and after the live stream, I just put it out there. and it's called MC Rate Drum. And it's kind of incredible still how often it comes up. I get tagged, someone's taken it, they've taken it in this whole other direction, and then someone else will have taken it in another direction, and someone will be making ambient music with it, and someone will be making IDM with it, and it's it's pretty cool to see. You know, like I like the device as it is, but then someone else saw another possibility for it. And that's one of the beauties of it's like getting the Nord Lead 2 and being like, you know what, I really wish I could put another filter in it. So you just like put in another filter in the world that I live in with Max. You know, it's kind of
I mean, it's not the same thing, obviously, but for some people, it could be a really nice sort of look inside the machine, you know, and see. It could also kind of enlighten or give comment to or provide context about the artist that has been, using this tool to create this stuff with it. You know, I mean, music is everybody understands music, you know, you like it or not, but you know what it is and you know how to interpret it. And, you know, it sort of speaks in a sort of, familiar language, as where a max patch or an instrument you've designed is only interesting for a very specific group of people who are. So it's not the same thing, but I think, you know, it's for people who are interested, and it could provide context around the work itself, I think.
Right. I love that, you know, we all started off on this journey, and I think one big mistake that is often made in the music industry is this, you know, individuality element that is perceived, because no, we're all in this together, we're all in this bloody world together, as we found out. We all gave each other the fucking virus in the last year, you know, like capitalism,
caring, I guess.
Yeah, you know, capitalism would like us to continue to think we're individuals, and so would politics, but we're not. And, you know, the great thing about the Max community is you never forget your start of your journey. And I think the most phenomenal artists and musicians are those that just continue to give back to the community. And it's not that hard to do, really. Like yourself, what you're doing right now. I mean, I'm sure you could be off having a blast jamming right now, but no, you're giving back to the community now too. And I think for me, that's as much as part of being an artist these days as the actual output or what you're sharing. And you just never know too, like you share what you think might be something little or small, or a piece of patching or an insight or a tip. You're like, whatever, but like that could be the beginning of someone's journey, their career, you know?
Yeah, and the other thing about sharing tools is that tools are pretty much open-ended, you know? And, you know, music is finished. It's basically, you know, the artist has drawn a line, okay, it's done, move on, you know, and it has a final state. And whereas an instrument, you know, is totally open, and it could be used by other people to create stuff which is completely different and has a very, you know, it could actually surprise the maker of the instrument, you know, that you hear that from people who build synths or whatever, you know, what the fuck are they doing, you know, getting these sounds out of my synth or out of my machine, you know, it's incredible. So I think, you know, that's a beautiful thing too, if you just pass it on and just it starts to lead its own life, you know.
Yeah.
I want to know what Tom has against the Nord 2. What's your personal beef with the Nord 2, man?
Not as dope as the Nord 1. That's the gripe.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
No, I love it. The Nord Lead 2
it's just missing a fucking filter.
The Nord needs one more. The Nord Lead 2 is my first synth. The Nord stuff, the early Nord stuff, I should say. I'm not so into stage pianos and that crap now, but the early Nord stuff was mind blowing. And I think the Nord modular was before its time. Like, I think if it actually came out now, it would be freaking gigantic. But
if they were smart, they would. I don't know. I'm sure no one from Nord is ever going to know that we're saying this, but like, if they want to sell a lot of units of something, they'd make a new they'd make a G3.
Yeah.
Because every fucking dork in the universe would buy one. They price it.
Absolutely. I was having a chat with Inigo Kennedy about the Nord modular G2, and I was telling him how much I wanted to get into it, but I can't because it's not compatible with any computer systems that I own personally right now. It'd be fucking amazing if they actually did something new.
Yeah, the editor is only 32-bit, so now all the OSs are 64 only, 64. And you got to have a dedicated machine for it, and everyone I know that has one is just like put an old MacBook Pro aside just to run the Nord editor. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen people petition them over the years, and I think they're making too much money from selling stage pianos to give a shit. So I heard they got burnt a little bit. The G2, they just couldn't sell it. Like guitar centered floor guys just had no idea of how to explain it to someone coming in, and it was nearly $3,000, and you still needed to buy a PC back in the mid 2000s, another couple of $1,000s, right? So back then.
Well, we've come to an age now where we don't need to depend on stores like Guitar Center to sell products, because if you go to Guitar Center these days, they don't sell really anything that I would ever use. It's usually, you go there for cables and MIDI cables at most.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, Mo, because I'd say aside from my mono stuff, everything that I use you can buy at Guitar Center. Literally, my
that should be the liner notes of your album.
I got my speakers at Vintage King, but pretty much everything else is just whatever.
Yeah, the next album, rather than a list of gear used, which seems to have become popular, you can just put Guitar Center.
I have nothing to hide, man. I have I use the same shit that everybody else uses. It's just, you can buy it anywhere. I don't even have a lot of stuff,
He's keeping that M Audio USB Quattro sound card alive.
No, but I use RME stuff, which you can buy at Guitar Center, right? I didn't buy it there, but you can buy it there. I like the RME stuff because they write their own drivers, and it's really fast, and it's super reliable, and to me it sounds better than the Motu stuff. And I don't really, I cordially dislike monitoring through an Apollo system, through a UAD Apollo system. It sounds it's just a little soft for me somehow. It's not as pointy as I want it to be.
So do you guys run stuff outside to process, outside the box to process it and go back in, or is everything taking place inside the computer?
For me, it's both.
Okay.
It depends. I like hardware reverb for certain things.
What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I just, this album I did went out the other week, a lot of the Mac stuff, it ended up going through this Tape Echo, Echo Fix. This Australian company makes it. It's basically a Space Echo 201.
Oh, is that the blue thing? Yeah.
It's literally right there. And I don't give a shit about, is it digital, is it analog, blah, blah, blah. It's the sound. And there's something beautiful about running droney kind of granular stuff through tape. Oh, man. So that's, and outboard wise, I'm a big fan of going through, old Turbo Rat pedals and stuff like that to get there's just a crunchiness that you can get. It just, no matter how many distortion algorithms you pile on, it just doesn't get there,
Yeah, and it's super fast. One box does the trick. If you like the sound, you use it. If you don't, you use another one. Yeah. So
this is a big one for me.
Oh, which is that?
This is a big one. I'm really into the Boss stuff, and with Wazacraft, they've been doing a lot of remaking classic pedals. I love the Dimension C chorus. It's my favorite.
But how often do you use your Metal Zone, though?
I have a Metal Zone. I haven't used it in a while. It's funny you say that because I just bought I just pre-ordered the Wazacraft HM2, the heavy metal pedal.
I don't like
Thomas getting his pedal collection out.
I don't like the metal zone, but this one fucking slays.
Oh, yeah.
Mega distortion, man.
And it's the magic.
Got a bunch of them up in there.
The magic.
Yay.
I've got quite a few down here as well.
And then this guy.
The rat.
Oh, the rat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a classic.
Pure filth.
That mega distortion reminds me of every punk band I was in the 90s.
Yeah, because that's the thing, I mean, of course, there's amazing things you can do inside the computer, but there's always or the chance to get like these sort of harsh edges of stuff, which can sometimes be desirable, but other times you want to get rid of them. So you use tape then, and anything else? You got any preamps or whatever that you use to soften up the sound a bit or something?
I use the UAD stuff a lot, although I'm pretty curious about what Josh has just been saying, and I am in the market for a new live audio interface. It could be an RME, in fact, and I don't think it will be much else, to be honest. That's what I actually been looking at, but yeah.
Let's talk about that afterwards.
Yeah. But yeah, there's still, like, sometimes the sound for me is synthesized in Max, and sometimes the whole patch is just a massive effects processor, or it's granular synthesis. So the material I bring in is really important. Here's a little instrument I made that looks like the dodgiest piece of shit ever. But it's basically a single string. It's it's just a bit of musical wire, and then so I magnetized the wire, right? Magnetized it, and then I got the EBO, and then just fucking wail on that, and have and mic it up and run it into Max and go bananas.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, serious, great for drones, and then I can pull this up and down to change the pitch. Yeah.
It's kind of like some really nice hillbilly like folk.
It's serious. It's serious outback stuff, mate. Mate, where's the dig, mate?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, didgeridoo, it's great. Oh yeah, I have some didgeridoo samples that are fucking outrageous.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, Josh? I know you're a multi-instrument player. You've got a pretty wide range of instruments you play. Do you ever run anything through your Max patches yourself?
Not so much. Max for me is more about manipulating MIDI. But yeah, I have a couple things that. Yeah, sometimes. I don't build hillbilly outback junk band shit like Tom is or whatever. But yeah, I'm not that smart or creative. But yeah, I like instruments.
Mo, well, you said you were dabbling in Max. What have you been doing with it? What is did you get any results you like, or are you still in the frustrated programming mode?
Still, it's nothing worth reporting to. That's for sure. I mean, I took this course, and I think we built like a 4-channel mixer and learned how to bring in sounds into it. And
what would you want to do? Because you've got plenty of stuff around which is sort of instantly accessible. What is it? What are you looking for?
Well, I think at some point I was just starting to look for alternative ways to generate rhythmic ideas that was a little outside of the box, a little bit more generative. And, I was trying to explore multiple different ways of being able to just make something different than what I was used to, like, step editing things in a piano roll or using a step sequencer in a drum machine. And I had come across some of those Max patches that Attacker had leaked or had gotten leaked, and I played around with them, and I just really wanted to have a deeper understanding of exactly how they worked. I mean, my experience has been far more around Reactor and kind of learning how to program. When I did the last Belief Defect album, Luis and I had developed our own Reactor patch, which basically was the foundation of the entire album. And I was kind of looking for a new platform to kind of stumble across this new instrument that I could bass on. I'm still wrapping my head around Max, and I'm still playing around with it often. I look at other patches people try to do and try to dissect them and try to understand them a little bit better. But yeah, I'm still in the learning process of it, and
it'd be fun to port.
Fascinating.
It'd be fun to port that reactor patch to Max.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
To do a rebuild of it.
Do a rebuild.
Yeah,
no, that's actually not a bad idea. I mean, it's not only been Max. I mean, I've been like kind of researching in tidal cycles and
I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
just
so
all
cool.
kinds of different ideas, just to kind of think outside and break my norm a little bit and try to find something new to inspire me musically. So that's why I find this conversation incredibly intriguing, and I was really excited to talk to you guys because, you know, it's a world that I'm deeply interested in diving. It's been around forever. You know, I've seen it around forever. All my friends use it, and it's just something that I want to have a deeper understanding of.
Cool. Yeah. Have you guys tried tidal cycles? We had the guy who wrote it on the chat, and together with Ben Deru, you know, and I must say that you know, he started it around then, and the last time I spoke to him, he was actually already quite advanced in you know, getting interesting results. You know, so it's got a steep learning curve, but it's, you know, it's doable.
Yeah, that's sort of the next frontier for me when I have some time to learn something new, which I don't have right now, which I wish I did. I guess
Alex
I found
McLean.
out.
Sander saying Alex McLean. Yeah, we had him on. Alex.
That's right.
It might be possible this Delta variant might buy you some more time to dive into.
Yeah, it looks like it. You know, yeah, who knows?
Oh God.
People in LA are not wearing masks, man. They are like, nobody is wearing masks here.
Yeah, I think the it's all got a bit confusing for people now. They're all getting the information from so many. Like, I was like, "What? Are we meant to wear masks again now?" Like, I'm so confused. Like, and then there's the willingly, you know, ambivalent kind of people that you know, don't want to know the information. But yeah, I think Ben is going to play Tidal Cycles live at this September show.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. I'm excited to hear how he navigates that.
Yeah, we're hosting another one of our Black Noise nights this September, and Ben's coming out to do a Tidal Cycle set.
Awesome. Is that going to be recorded or in some way, or streamed, or is
not
it just
streamed? But maybe I mean, that's not a bad idea. I can kind of explore that. But Kindome is also playing. Who's
Mike Hodnick?
Yeah, Mike Hodnick. He's also coming down to play with us, as well as Richard Devine and the crew. So that'll be an interesting thing to jump into.
Mike's great. He's good value and total sleeper. Like, you know. He's not online that much, a little bit of Instagramming here and there, but like his output is so good.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Algorithmic Art Assembly in I have no idea what year now. I don't know, 2019, I think it was, or it was 2019. And it blew my mind, like surround system at the gray area, and his set was so good. Yeah.
That sounds like a hell of a lineup, Mo.
Yeah, we're getting into throwing algo raves in the UK.
Nice.
No, that sounds really cool. I wish I could be there. We've got a question. Oh, no, that's not a question. I was wondering, Tom, before you started using jitter, did you ever come across this stuff by Anti-Orb, like the NATO plus 55?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I played around with that for a while as well. It's incredible stuff. And, you know, it's very mysterious and very unpredictable, but, you know, pretty out there.
If you ever want an interesting story to read about, look up NATO times jitter or something. Like, that's That's an interesting one. I think the creator of NATO ended up trying to sue Cycling 74 and all this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, there were some developers on NATO who were current Cycling 74 employees. Yeah, I know. I still don't know the full story, and I've heard it from many people's mouths. But yeah, and even the creator, the whole piece of software had this mythological element to it. So NATO developers would turn up to trade shows, and the creator would be a different person each time. And it turned out they were hiring actors to turn up to these trade shows.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff they put out, whether it was one person or whether it was a group or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But everything they did was deliberately confusing people about their identity and stuff like that.
That's one thing. At one point, they stopped selling. They would not sell licenses to Americans anymore. Yeah. Awesome. I forgot about that one. They were like, yeah, you could not buy a license if you were in America.
Yeah, it was a weird combination of like internet art, visual art, and maybe also some activism. There was like a lot of things blended into each other. It was really weird, but I did some shows with that stuff.
Yeah. Do you think they would hire Americans to be actors at a trade show? Because I could use a job.
Yeah, I still wonder what happened to that. Like, it just fizzled out. The finale was a few lawsuits against a couple of Cycling 74 employees that fizzled out as well. And then no one's heard anything from anyone since for like 15 years or something.
Right. Maybe it was an inside job.
Maybe. Someone has some engineering programming skills though. So it's like they must. Where are they now?
I can tell you. I know this person.
Oh, bring it on.
Look at Josh sitting like a silent weapon, holding back information.
I spoke to her 2 months ago. It's pretty public knowledge who it is, who was responsible for the whole thing.
Anti-Orb or Netoshka, whatever they call it.
Netoshka Nezvanova is actually a Kiwi woman named Rebecca Wilson. She used to stay at my house in Chicago when she'd come into town. She's brilliant, a maniac in the best kind of way, but also like a hopeless romantic. She's real dreamy-eyed about it. She has like a real optimism about art and technology that I've always found really inspiring. Now she runs a company that she's made these plugins for streaming directly in and out of a DAW, and they were the first. They've been doing it in and out of Pro Tools since 2006, where you could track in one Pro Tools in Rotterdam and then stream it to somebody else's Pro Tools in Los Angeles. Right. It's been working for 15 years, working really well.
Cool.
I've used it. It's great.
What is it called, Josh?
Source Connect.
Nice.
Interesting.
It's great.
And does it only work in Pro Tools?
I think it's probably all the other ones as well now too.
Nice one.
Yeah.
I've been using Ninjam a lot during the lockdown to connect with other people. Like with Mo, we've done a jam together, but you always have to compensate for the latency somehow.
Yeah.
And if you're working on something non-real time, if you're just connecting two machines and working on something which is sort of like in arrangement mode, and you're just basically Dropboxing files up and down, that kind of style, then that doesn't really make that you don't really have to deal with the latency. It's just there is latency, but it doesn't really matter. But if you actually want to play together in real time, you have to compensate. However little the latency is, you're still missing something. So Ninjam compensates for that with by delaying the sound on each side by 2 bars. So exactly 2 bars. So you can be in sync, but it is just buffered and then spit out on the other side.
Interesting.
And that works really well.
That's cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
There's a good one called Audio Movers.
Yep,
Audio
it's
Movers.
awesome.
Yeah, that one does. That's pretty impressive. And in terms of like, you're not stuck using MP3s, MP3 compression. You can actually do, if you have the internet, you can do pretty high bit rate. Yeah. And that also has delay compensation, so you can do a ping. You can do a ping to work out what the round trip latency is, and then factor that in.
Seems like it's a free public beta online.
I think they have a paid license too, but what do you mean is? Oh, nice. Oh, shit. They really stepped it up since I last looked at it. That's sweet. Wow.
Yeah, public beta 6.
Damn.
DALL-E high quality audio streaming.
Yeah, I know a few mastering engineers and stuff who were using it this past year to do, like, you know, like rather than sending back mixes, but actually playing them back to artists and you know, getting some real-time feedback in without that ability to be in the same room together.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. I remember when we mastered our last Belief Defect record, we had a sit-in session at Calix. I mean, Josh, you do mastering for records too. I mean, that'd be a pretty great way to be able to have an artist sit in on a session and listen to a mastering session by being able to stream them what you're doing in a live environment.
Yeah.
Without compression too, you know, and the latencies in that case is so small it doesn't matter. You just feel like, hey, that one part, can we change it?
Did you guys see this other thing called Elk? I just got a mail from them today, and I signed up for it a while ago when I was looking for ways to do, you know, jams over the internet, and I stumbled upon this thing called Aloha. And then, you know, it went quiet for a while, and now they've just released this hardware thing. So basically both sides need this hardware box, and they promise to, you know, have this no latency jamming over the internet experience with hardware.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah. It's called Elk now. It used to be called Aloha, but it's now Elk.
Aloha by Elk.
It's in Sweden. They're in Sweden. Interesting. I'll check it out.
Yeah, that's I love, you know, I mean, I guess there's some good stuff coming out of the pandemic, right? Is this we've stepped up our streaming games, we're working out latency, there's new products coming out. I know it's really interesting how to see companies like Roland like developing interfaces just for, you know, bloggers and stuff now. Like it's interesting how that's becoming a market now.
Yeah, I think the live streaming world for video game players on Twitch and stuff like that has become such a huge market that it's, I mean, designing products for people who don't have a lot of skills with audio gear and making it user friendly and easy for them to use is quite popular right now.
Yeah, the gamers actually get views on Twitch. Hello, Twitch.
No, it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, live streaming, you know, I've had some problems with playing live over streams just because, like, I miss that camaraderie of, like, getting to the venue, like, shooting the shit as you're sound checking and having some food together. And, yeah, I was just saying to my wife the other day, like, it's like there's no way to have that social element with a live stream, really. It's pretty difficult.
Well, it's absolutely true what you're saying, because you know you're not with other people and you don't have that physical energy. But I must say, with some of the ones that we've done, there was a buzz, with by just seeing people in the chat, go crazy and stuff like that. So it is not the same. I'm not saying that, but it is not completely alien that you're just by yourself, sort of playing music into a computer. It does have a social aspect, but it's a totally different one.
I think it's improved too. It's really interesting to see live streams in the last month or two, how much better they've gotten compared to what they were in, April last year. Like people had refined their process, and even this was so seamless to jump on the link and get in here and chat with you guys. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And my wife does some work with acting and screenwriting and stuff in Hollywood, but she lives here in the mountains, and it's interesting to see. Like I can imagine parts of the music industry, and that industry won't be going back to certain things that happened before this. It's like there is some great stuff about the connectivity we can have without having to drive across LA for an hour and a half to have a coffee for half an hour and then drive home for an hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's some beauty in that.
From my experience, throughout this whole year, I've done plenty of DJ live streams, some which were, pre-recorded and some which were live streams, but nothing was as engaging and as fun to participate than like the Stoor live streams that went on with Jochen, because there was an element of danger behind it, of being able to like sync up from two different places in the world, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen, if there's going to be mistakes, and and you're just kind of feeling it out. And then the camaraderie of being able to collaborate with somebody, a good friend on the other side of the world, and then just have an audience and be able to watch and be able to look at the stream and see people chatting with you at the same time. It was a lifesaver. I mean, it gave you that same sense of community and integration with other people that was missing through all the loneliness that went on through this past year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what surprised me as well. But and also how the whole distance thing kind of disappeared. I mean, it makes you kind of hyper focused on the music itself. Because you're not in the same room with the other person, so you're not taking the visual cues of body language, or like the energy of being with another person. That is usually you think that's quite a vital or essential thing when you're making music together, right? But for some reason this also worked. Yeah, it also works without being in the same room and still have this sort of very intimate connection. And have this sort of flow going on with two people, even with a 2-bar delay and not being physically in the same room. But it felt like with all these collaborations I've done, it felt like you're actually making music together. That feeling of just jumping into the giving the other person space, and then jumping in and then taking over, and then just doing that whole interaction that you feel when you're making music with another person was all there, and all real. Yeah.
I think the 2-bar delay actually lended itself to a sound that was more
less
slowly
rushed,
evolving and busy, and less rushed, because you're both keeping in mind that all of the changes and the additions added to the music was done at a certain pace. So it actually made it a more heady and kind of deeper experience.
I think, Mo, you touched on something that perhaps I've not had in any of the live stream experiences, is that there was this danger element because you guys were implementing the sync, and that danger element is one of the things I like about playing live, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the key thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you guys really were key. You guys added that, and that's pretty cool. Like, I haven't had that. It's like it feels too safe right here, right? Man, playing live, like way too safe.
Well, it wasn't really that dangerous because the syncing was not automated. It was just done by hand, But I totally agree. I think that the danger in playing in front of an audience is very similar, because you can fuck up, I mean, you build if you're a smart musician, or if you take it seriously, you don't plan everything ahead. You just set up a set of tools that you let you improvise on the spot, like on the fly. And if you build enough danger into it, the performance comes out better. And if you make it yourself too easy, then it becomes boring. So it is just like this sort of balance between not knowing what you were going to do and a certain arsenal that you have prepared, or that what you can fall back on. That's the key thing when you're preparing for a live show, or when you're playing live. It needs to be risky, otherwise you become lazy, and it's all becoming very boring. How do you actually do that when you prepare for a live set in your domain, in the Max MSP domain? How do you build the danger into it?
So I've had a few dangerous moments. I mean, my first.
Do you patch live? Do you actually also modify the patch? Oh, okay.
But I do remember. I was playing the Perth International Arts Festival in Australia in the 2000s, and there was a fun moment there where, like, Max would tax your CPU. You were running at 98, 95%. You're always playing with fire. And I wanted to use this one particular VST plugin. And I was playing this set. It was like 45 minutes, and I got about 25 minutes, like halfway point, and implemented this plugin. And I've never heard a PA or a set just go cold so hard. Like, it was like an explosion in the room, and everyone like simultaneously shot themselves, and like all just immediately looked at the stage. And I looked at my screen, and I'm like, it's just blank. It's the desktop. And I was like, I looked at the clock. This was only like 10 or 15 seconds or less. I'm like, 25 minutes, I guess it's a punk set. And I just fucking closed the laptop. And everyone just went, whoa!
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's the thing. You have to act as if it was deliberate,
And, but if it had been 5 or
This
10
is my
minutes,
show.
5 or 10 minutes sooner, and they would have been like, oh, his laptop fucked up. But everyone was like, oh, he just was doing a short set. But it's funny because I used to see all those guys like Tim Hecker and Finesse and whatever play in the 2000s, and those guys for a long time would have these shortwave radios on stage, right? And they'd run them into a second channel on the mixer, and so if the laptop died, they'd just ramp up some like shortwave noise while they rebooted the laptop. Like,
it's not a bad idea.
It's kind of crazy how stable laptops are now. I mean, I kind of miss that. I saw some wild shows, like,
I don't miss it.
Yeah. But like fail-safes now are so easy to make. I mean, the beauty of laptops being cheap is you can have a system, right? You can just have two computers, right, with the same set, and just run a constant tone out of one channel that goes to the other machine. And if that tone drops, the other machine just cuts in. It's pretty easy to make, especially in Macs, it's pretty easy to make a backup.
See, that's too much work for most people these days, because you can't even bother DJs to carry USB sticks. Like anything more than a USB drive and a set of headphones, like, fuck that. I'm not carrying anything else.
Who's the DJ that's backlining their headphones?
It's on the technical writer, man. I mean,
Josh, what about you? I know that Telefon Tel Aviv story where you sprayed the audience with like noise.
Charlie did it technically.
We were unruly audience that you destroyed.
Yeah, we were playing in Amsterdam at Paradiso, and we were sort of the last act on a live, like kind of a band live show lineup that was going to end at like 1 a.m. and then like the boom 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 is going to start, and there are 250, 300 kids in the front that are there to see Telefon, and then there's like 700 kids that drove in from Rotterdam who are ready to get fucked up, like just just Dutch ravers, just ready to go off. And they were just not having it with TTA, man. They just weren't into it. And some booze started, and that's like Charlie and I kind of snickering to each other about that. That's fine. But then they started throwing shit. And somebody threw a Heineken bottle at Charlie's head. And it like kind of clipped him a little bit, but he mostly got out of the way of it. And it pissed him off so much that he just like opened, you know, a noise oscillator, attached it to a, you know, gain, and then Easy DAC, or, you know, turned it on and just blasted it. And it was like the fucking loudest thing I've ever heard. And he's like, I don't know how to do Max, but I think I know how to do this. Let me try something. I was like, okay. And he did it, and it was just like, everybody's covering their ears. The kids in the front were like, yeah! We just folded them up and walked off stage.
I love it.
Yeah, it was really, it was stupid and loud and really probably dumb and kind of dangerous for the crowd. I would never do something like that again. Now I just, you know, now they you know, when I'm bombing, the promoter just pulls me off stage. They just literally just pull me like in the middle of the set, like, all right, dude, you're done. Stop.
One of those classic hooks that you just throw out. And
oh yeah, the hook that happened to me in Colombia like 5 years ago. I yanked off stage.
I had a Rotterdam experience, like too. I was booked. I think.
My God.
I think someone had played the most like beat-driven, most musical track that I had on MySpace, and they had booked me as like a minimal techno artist. And I was playing, and people, the bartender, when I turned up, they loved us. They were like from Australia, blah, 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 feeding us full of beer. But like halfway through, I look over and he's shaking his head. And people are coming up to us saying, "This is not music. Like, can you please play another track?" And it's like, "No, I'm not a DJ." I'll never forget. There was this old rocker guy. This old rocker guy was the sound guy for the venue. He wasn't. I can't remember the name of the venue, but he wasn't. He just, you know, it was just he just worked there. But we were the most fun thing he had heard in a long time. And they were trying to turn us off, and I look over, and he's like hovering over the soundboard, like protecting it so that they couldn't cut us off.
Attaboy.
And the bartender at the end of the night said, "See you later, don't come back again."
Crazy. I really feel my country has now you know, had a very big dent in its reputation for two people on the chat complaining about
No, I love playing in the Netherlands. I should say that this was 16, 17 years ago. Yeah. I love playing there, and I've had nothing big. That was the only kind of weird experience, and I don't really look at it as a bad experience. I look at it as a teachable moment.
Me neither. It was a blast.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
I do recall one time I booked Ben Dayru at one of our shows when what was it called, the Complex or something like that in Glendale.
Oh, dude!
And I remember his computer crashed and the music just completely went off, and he did a little tap dance number on the stage. Just like walked off to the side a little bit. It was fucking awesome. That's a good way to handle it right there.
Yeah, you have to just not freak out. Like it's like falling off a motorcycle. You know what I mean? There are those who have and those who will. Like playing live with a laptop, there are those who have experienced crashes and those who will experience crashes. And if you freak out on stage, you just, God damn it, you know, you get mad. It's just the crowd gets uncomfortable and it's awkward, and you just got to be chill and cool about it. And like, okay, like I'll fix it. This is live music. It's gonna break at some point. Stuff gets fucked up and goes wrong. I fuck up. The computer fucks up. You know, these are things that happen. And honestly, I think if you're like kind of cool and calm and sort of gracious about it, the crowd is gonna root for you to win. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. they want to see a recovery. Like
there's no. You know what? It's
it actually quite. Actually, I was going to say that one outage is quite good for the night. Usually, it becomes bad when it's more than 2 or 3. But one is usually okay, man.
There's a really interesting case study of that with Telefon Tel Aviv in 2004 when we were touring for Maplewood is Effortless. We were playing at the Batufar in Paris, and we were playing as a trio with tons of gear and keyboards and a huge Pro Tools rig and all these mic preamps and stuff. And the set was going fine. The crowd was pretty tame. And then halfway through the set, the power shut down, right? And so the way we were doing the set back then required like a almost 10-minute long power up, right? It took forever to get sessions loaded and get things working and get things synced up again. So I kind of tried to haltingly speak French to the crowd, and this dude was like heckling me like in a really sweet way. He was like, "Speak English so we can understand you," and I was like, fuck, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I'm terrible at French. He's like, "Okay, yeah, now we can hear you." It's like, okay, well, we're gonna get back to it. Okay, we're gonna pick up from this song. I'm sorry, the power went out. We're gonna start this song from just before the second chorus. Thanks for being patient. So then I get back over to the keyboard and I count in, okay, 3, 2, okay, boom, play. And then everybody was just, they screamed. Rarely have we had an applause like that. It was a huge roar of an applause. And I think in that way, it was good that the sort of crash happened to sort of give us a chance to recover.
Yeah, you would almost build it in as a tactic, Yeah. Well, this room isn't feeling it. Let's just pull the plug.
It's also the crowd interaction that we seldomly ever have with electronic music too. Being able to talk to the crowd, I'm sure that's a point of hype as well.
Oh, I talk to the crowd all the time. I mean, I guess in that way, I've got a microphone, so I don't talk.
Cakes, though.
I don't do like between song banter, but I definitely say something.
It reminds me, like when Richard played at Catch One, this show just before October before the lockdown. The first 15 minutes of his set, he was only playing, Richard Devine was playing out of the left side of the PA. The sound guy was off in another part of the club. And then finally it got sorted and just the right side came in all of a sudden, and the audience fucking went nuts.
It's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do is just having a laugh, because that's the best thing you can do. Actually, guys, we're talking for nearly 2 hours. Do you want to do more, or should we? Usually, we stick to 2 hours just to make it a more sort of decent sized podcast, But what we usually do at the end is give everybody a little time to share with the audience what they've been doing and what they've got coming up. Maybe any shows, any new releases, anything you want to share with the audience. Maybe Mo can start this time.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Anything you want to share, Mo?
Well, Luis, my partner in Belief Defect, was just here in LA over the week, so we're just still trying to hack away at the next Belief Defect record. Of course, there's no release date in mind.
Oh, so you're actually in the same place now, in the same space now to work on it again. Oh, that's cool.
Exactly. After it's almost a year and a half now, so we finally started resuming the work on the album. Obviously, we don't have that much time, but we're trying to finish as much as we can while we're here. Playing some gigs this summer, which is weird, and not sure if I should be, but I am, and I'm just trying to enjoy it while I've got them. And it's been fun playing in Miami this weekend, so looking forward to that and seeing some old friends and kind of getting back on the grind. Other than that, no releases yet in plan, but some stuff is coming very soon.
Cool. What about you, Josh? You got anything you want to share?
I'm working on a video game score for an indie company from Poland called Draw Distance. The game is called Serial Cleaners. I expect it'll probably be out at the end of the year. I am not playing any shows because nobody will book me. so I'm working on this video game score. I'm working on several different records that I can't talk about. And then I'm engaging in revenge bedtime procrastination between the hours of 1 and 4 a.m. Of like platinuming all of the FromSoft stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Maybe it's time we get Josh out to do a techno DJ set at one of our shows pretty soon.
I could do that. I'd love to do that.
You ready, man? Are you ready for that?
I'd love to
make it happen.
I'd love to. As long as I don't have to. As long as I can play like kind of pretty stuff.
Yeah, you can play whatever you want.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to.
Cool.
Okay, so shout out to all the promotes out there. Book Josh. Go for it. What about you, Tom? What are you working on? Anything you want to share?
No shows in the near term. I was told that the Algorithmic Art Assembly will be rebooting, which was, I think, originally meant to be an annual event, but at the Gray Area in San Francisco. So I think that will be early next year to be announced and determined. And I just released an album last week. I believe someone will post up the link.
Yeah, it's also on your Bandcamp, right? So yeah, I think
it's on my Bandcamp, ambient textual based album that I produced in the last 6 months or so with some nice mastering by Josh. In fact, if you need mastering services, get at him too. He's got no gigs, so
I don't have any live gigs going on, so I'm just in the studio all day every day.
But looking forward to getting back to playing live, but I'm a little cautious about playing smaller, packed in shows right now, I guess. I don't know.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, we all have to kind of get used to it again, I guess.
Yeah.
I've got some coming up, and I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Well, that is the other thing too. I'm like, well, I haven't looked at my live max patches for 18 months now. I just been making other random shit. Yeah.
That's awesome. I got a request for Josh though. I'd really love to hear the next second Woman album.
Nobody's going to hear it.
It's going to end up on that hard drive where all the other stuff is sitting.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I went back and listened through to it. There's a lot of really good stuff there. I think though, if Turk and I are going to when we release another one, we're going to start from scratch. I don't know if any of the ideas on this thing that are finished already will get sort of cannibalized for newer ideas or whatever. I don't know.
Awesome.
We'll see.
Well, looking forward to whatever new material's coming out. That's for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that Belief Defect record. I love the last one.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for your amazing insights and knowledge and company. Really enjoyed it. So thanks a lot. And I will also thank the people who are watching, who stuck with us on Twitch. There's one last thing I wanted to mention from my side, and that's the Patreon page that we have. If you like the project and you want to give us a shout out there or support us, you can do so. And there's also for the higher tiers, there are sound packs and masterclasses and stuff like that. So have a look there if you're interested. And also we have the Discord server going on with an ever-growing community with nerds and musicians and stuff happening there. Lots of exchange of information. If you're into that stuff, have a look there. I think Sander is posting the links in the chat or in the comments right now. So that's it for us. So thanks again. Really enjoyed it. And see you later. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me.